Why, hello there. Thank you for looking in on my little pressure valve of mental schmutz. This is going to be where I'm putting my therapeutic outbursts as part of a vlog, or, if you prefer, a primitive form of social commentary. You see, over the last few decades, I've noticed something about the communities around me, and I'd like to see if there are any others who agree with my observations. It might also be instructive for me to know whether I'm full of shit. I've noticed that the reactions some people are having to problems, to events, even to just situations or simple attempts at communication, have become more and more absurd. Simple habitual greetings become microaggressions. Vocal leaders in movements protesting racism or supremacy insist on demonizing huge swaths of the population based only on race or sex. Politicians and governing bodies have become more focused on forwarding the interests of citizens of other nations than of securing the interests of their own constituents. Teachers of disciplines that claim to be critical now seemingly expect unquestioning acceptance and punish criticism as phobic or privileged. Journalists don't bother to check their facts, cite their sources, or even wait to see if reports or allegations are based in any sort of measurable reality. Experts that are outright telling us that they want us to be afraid, claiming that humanity is going to end from climate crisis in 12 years unless we do everything they want us to do, and do it right now. Even though climate alarmists have been using versions of that particular argument for 50 years now. You do the math. Folks seeking equality through attempts to take away rights. Movements to correct the historical crime of so-called cultural erasure, now removing or destroying the trappings of history and culture. People claiming that not being offended is a right, but that free expression of ideas is not. I could, and I will, go on, but you get the point for now. Now, most people won't care to look too deeply into many of these subjects because doing so will dig into time better spent living one's life. Also, the subject matter and all the hostility surrounding it is hurtful enough to the psyche of an otherwise productive and sane member of society as to be off-putting. Finding myself, however, now in possession of massive amounts of free time and in need of an outlet for my mounting frustration, I've decided to pass on my bullshit appreciation to anyone who cares to look. Better for me to do this than something stupid that might get me arrested. Again. Thank you for looking. It turns out, I've always been a great fan of the absurd. It never mattered where it could be found. Cinema, comedy, music, books, comics, games, visual art, fiction, even historical trivia. If it were at all wacky, illogical, or unreasonable, it tended to strike a chord with me. Such irreverence in the face of reality makes for good humor and good entertainment. Unfortunately, that approach does not do so well when applied to real-world science, education, problem-solving, social engineering, and especially governance. Nonetheless, we've seen such concepts applied to corrupt our institutions, fracture our communities, and set people against one another in increasingly vitriolic and violent fashion. I look at how our society has changed, how it continues to do so, and I frequently find myself questioning the changes, their causes, and the intention of those who instigate them. The course along which these changes set us, what benefits such changes bring, if any, whether such changes benefit all or some or none, and on and on and on. Yeah, I have a great many questions, and as I like to say, I don't think I'm alone in that. So, my intention in making these little vignettes is to get this shit in my head out and on the table, and to see if there are any others out there who would like to answer these same queries. Maybe others have more pressing or important questions of their own, and we can work on them together instead of insulting and bitching at each other. Wouldn't that be refreshing? I might also have some ideas that I'd like to share, and perhaps I can dig into a good many of the observations that led me to decide to share my idiocy and my questions about idiocy with you. That said, the topics that I'm going to be talking about and the lens through which I see them are partially influenced by my own identity and headspace. Also, I've noticed the tendency of writers to include what they consider important facets of their own identities at every available chance, along with that day's selfie if they can. So, in order to give you a better idea of what to expect, here's the requisite rundown of personal facets. I'm what's known somewhat derisively in most online spaces as a normie. This is not entirely correct, however, since my various horrid life choices and stupid actions have led me to a social status somewhere south of pathetic. Let's just call me a loser and leave it at that. I'm not an expert on much of anything outside of doing day labor or cooking. Also, I'm not an academic, not a writer, not a journalist, not unbiased, nor a trained or experienced public speaker. I'm not neutrally objective, not an influencer, not a victim of daily oppressions, not a celebrity, not an athlete, not a leader of any stripe, not a teacher, not a business person, not an artist of any kind, not creative, not a craftsperson, not particularly well-traveled, not charismatic, not a bright bulb, no prize, and I'm not in any way a source of inspiration. I am a cynic. I'm overly opinionated. I'm an asshole. I'm old. I'm a foodie. I am a sci-fi fantasy horror fan. A gamer. The worst kind, casual. I'm a minor weeb. I am fat. I'm an American. I am ethnically European. I'm a centrist with conservative leanings. I'm a cishet male. I'm white. I live in a small town in a rural part of flyover country. I sexually identify as a kid-class naval destroyer. If you're interested, ask me about my railgun. I'm ugly too, hence no selfies. Further, I realize the action of publicly stating one's observations, interpretations, and opinions in a public forum, especially on the internet, invites judgment and counterpoint. Oh, and online hate, as the PC crowd calls it. That happens to pretty much everyone who comments on subjects that people feel anything about at all. I realize that I'm sticking my neck out voluntarily. So be it. I accept that it's up to me to deal with it. That said, I will not be using my real name or image for these vlogs. Instead, I'll be using a pseudonym. So, hello again. Are you patient enough to still be here listening? Well, thank you. And you are by far a better person than I am. Are you starting to see what I meant by absurd yet? That's what I mean by calling this project Ad Absurdum. I just want to give you an accurate idea of what to expect, at least initially. My first question to you, not just to those with beliefs that I consider absurd, is this. As you were listening to that boring list of personal attributes, biases, and identifiers, did any of those instantly color or even negate how you were viewing my statements? What does that say about you? About our society? Give it a thought, okay? Again, thank you for your patience, and I'll see you in the next entry.